Hi, Bondi Anglican Church friends. I was jogging with a friend on the beach the other day and he asked a really great question that just brought me onto one of the really special realities about our God, and I just want to share with you guys about that now briefly. Yes, I was jogging and we got to the end of our jog on the beach and my friend said, "Hey, do you want to jump in the water, finish off with a swim?" And I looked at my watch and it was about 6 p.m, which in my books is about shark o'clock. I don't like to swim at dusk because of the idea of sharks. And so I said, "No thanks," to my friend talking about sharks. And he said, "Yeah, but won't God protect us?" My friend's a really new Christian, and I think he was half joking, but kind of just posing that question as well. And it's a great question, and it's one that you might have, not because you're in the middle of a shark attack, I guess, but because COVID kind of brings to the front some of the stresses that might have already been bubbling away in our lives, but definitely kind of come up more prominently in lockdowns. Things like loneliness, things like work questions and challenges, health problems, and relational stress. And sometimes when we face these things, and maybe this week particularly, we can wonder, won't God protect me from these things? And my friend is right to have the sense that God will protect us, because what we find in Jesus is a God who is powerful against these kinds of things, but particularly loves us as well. We've seen that. He laid down his life for us on the cross. And so we're right to expect that he's going to look after us. What I did when I was at the beach with my friend, I decided to take him to the Psalms, Psalm number 23 particularly, and show him there because show him something there, because we learn about God's protection in Psalm number 3. We learn that God cares for us. It starts picturing, it's a psalm, a poem that starts by picturing God as our shepherd and one who leads us to good things, to still waters and green grass. So my friend's got the right lead. But the psalm goes on and talks about the reality that sometimes we'll find ourselves in dark valleys. And particularly it uses the phrase, "in the valley of the shadow of death." It's a pretty dark place. The poem goes on and talks about how there's times where we're surrounded by our enemies. So we're to expect, I think, as we read this psalm, that there's going to be times, even though God loves us and is powerful, there's going to be times when we're going to be in dark places, and sometimes we're going to be surrounded by our enemies. But what we find in Psalm number 23, and the comfort that we need to take from it, is that when we're in the dark valley, Psalm number 23 says that he's there with us. He walks there with us. Indeed, sometimes God will even lead us to those places. He's got his own purposes, and we'll find ourselves there. But what we can do is we can find him in the valley. The psalm says that his rod protects us and comforts us. When it describes being surrounded by enemies, it says that God will nonetheless feed you in the presence of your enemies. It's a really beautiful promise that even surrounded by enemies, God has your back, not even your back, but your front. He feeds you. And so what I want to just encourage you and myself to do this week is to remember and see that God has got us in this reality where sometimes we find ourselves in dark places or hard places, challenging places. It's not that he'll stop us from going there, and as I say, sometimes he'll even lead us there. Rather, it's that he protects us in those places. The promise is that he will be with us and he will take us out the other side, and we can rely on him for that. I want to encourage you this week to call on God in prayer, to be your shepherd in whatever is hard, whether it's just kind of medium levels of kind of boredom and frustration, all the way through to some of those bigger challenges that might be coming up for you at this time. I want you to call on God and say, "I need you as my shepherd. Where are you? I can't see you." Or maybe you can see him and just lean into him in prayer. Take the lead of the Psalms themselves, which teach us to pray whatever we're feeling. You don't need to tidy up your prayers for God. We can pray with anger like the Psalms do. We can pray with fear like the Psalms do. We can pray with grief or sadness like the Psalms do, and rejoicing and gladness at other times as well. I invite you, I want to challenge you and push you to pray this week to your God who is your shepherd, even in hard places. Lean into him.